Sheikhna Azizi, how are you? How's everything?
Alhamdulillah, it's lovely to see you
It's
again.
always good to see you, but to be honest, I know you were a bit busy, but I called you to come at this time because I need to speak to you about something that's been brought to my kind attention. I don't know if you realize, but today, although we had fun last week, today it's a bit more. There's something specific.
It looks like something's bothering you, yeah.
You know, we work a lot with the youth and development, and we hear a lot of stories and their problems, and they talk to us, and we try to help them. And you're very involved as well, because alhamdulillah, you're one of the few scholars who can connect well with the youth. One of the youth in school has been caught masturbating, and he's one of our lot. And for me, this is a very serious issue on 2 points. One, why is he doing it? Two, in public, like in being caught, that's big. So we want to nip it in the bud. And you know what I'm like. I'm always quite, let's sort stuff out, you know what I mean? And let's talk about problems and let's find solutions.
Yeah.
None of this beating around the bush and all that kind of stuff, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know this is quite sensitive topic, but the real issue for me is not the act, is the thing behind it. You know, like last week when we were talking about building ourselves, you know, beating laziness and having positivity, blah, blah, blah. This is, I mean, for me, I was like, this guy has no willpower, or this guy, I mean, I of course I don't come down hard on anyone, but we need to find solutions, because this is one person that we found out. There might be even bigger problems that we don't know of,
Yeah.
more people. Now, I'd love to help everyone in the world, but we need to start with our own shabab, our own youth. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, it's
I mean, are you a bit shocked, or?
I am. And as much as it's disappointing and it's hurtful, I think you're absolutely right. It is a concern that's happening out there. People are, practicing doing things which, we're praying that we never hear of, but we're hearing on and on and on.
I mean, there's been more and more cases, and they're getting worse and worse as time goes by.
Yeah, absolutely.
One shudders to think what's going to come next.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We are in a society, there's a moral decline, generally speaking, and I think it's something you're absolutely right. We have to discuss. We have to look at the ways in which we can help them. I look at these situations as a wake-up call, you know.
Let me give you some fruits.
Yeah,
while you're
thank
talking,
you.
sorry.
Thank you very much.
Carry on.
I look at these opportunities as a wake-up call, to be honest, because we could always be cocooned in our centers and talking about things which are just very much theoretical. But practically speaking, there are all these issues happening at universities, schools, in different places where youth gather with different backgrounds. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. We have got to get to the real matters, and we have to be as pragmatic and practical as possible. And I think one possible issue here is that there is a lack of self-control. There's a lack of that ability to say no to desire, what is known as the kind of willpower. And we are known as human beings, you know, we have that desire element to us, and we have the intellect element to us.
Look, I'm not even going to pretend to say that. Listen, a youth, being youthful, you have weak self-control. But the truth is, I don't accept it from our community, because we have to be a bit better than that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So again, it comes back to, for me, because especially that's why I called you here today, I wanted to discuss this with you so we can implement some practical things to help them, so this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, when we say willpower, this, you know, we've always had this problem as well. I know when we have our discussion circles and stuff, even with yourself, you always get these people that are like, okay, but you give us a rawaya and you give us a this and you give us that. It doesn't really mean much to us. We're living in the 21st century West. Give them, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, work on that every day, so you don't fall into this thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to do this. What do you say?
I agree to a certain extent, but one thing is we have to understand these practices, like this brother, unfortunately, he's done, are indicative of a wider problem. You see, it's not always a matter of certain steps. We have to look at the holistic, generally step out for a moment and think, okay, why are some of our youth, both males and females, are up to these kind of things? And there are factors we have to look at first and foremost, which is general, and there are specific. Okay, the general ones include ultimately weakening of faith. Somebody is not as faithful.
Weak aqidah.
Weak aqidah, yeah. You know, when they're pretty much befriended Satan, shaitan, in the sense that the Quran tells us the shaitan will whisper as a close, intimate friend. They'll listen, they'll do whatever their temptations drive them towards. That is because they've slowly distanced themselves from God, from spirituality, from connecting with Allah, from faith and other practices as well. So that's an indication. That's important to appreciate this at the beginning. Secondly is guidance and direction. So some of our youth, unfortunately, they've been slowly weakening their relationship with their parents and with the right crowd, and are hanging around with the wrong group of people.
I mean, the whole parents thing, I know that. I mean, every time we open any conversation with them, they don't have good relationships with their parents anymore. And to be honest, one of the reasons why I'm dealing with this, and you're dealing with this, and other people who work in this field are dealing with this, is because the parents cannot deal with this.
Yeah.
That's so frustrating.
And do you know why it's frustrating? Because we are told it's so important that the parents become good friends with their sons or daughters, especially at the teenage years, because...
Do you buy that?
I think so. I think it doesn't start at that age. It starts at a young age. So, for example, personally, what I'm trying to do now is to spend time with my children in the sense that I share some of their interests so that they feel that affinity, they can connect, they can relate. So, for example, we'll go to football matches together. We'll play football, for example, or sports. Yes, there is that element of spending time. People are very busy these days, and sometimes parents.
In this country, both the parents have to work to make
exactly.
it.
So they're somehow sacrificing that crucial element of creating a bond, a rapport with their children, and then when they're later teenage years, they'll get up to no good, God forbid, some of them. Well, it's perhaps sometimes expected when they're in such environments, friends, influence, TV, internet. And then the parents are panicking. And then when they come to their kids and they say, why are you doing it? The child is kind of disconnected and they're not willing to really take guidance from their parents, for example. So that is a big challenge, you know.
So should we do a workshop for the parents? But this is the thing, when you tell them you need to spend more time with their children, because we've done this before, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I'm working, my wife is working, we're trying to pay the mortgage. I mean, this is the, I don't know what you want to call it, the capitalistic society we live in.
Sadly,
Either you both work, you get rich, or one of you works, and you have to accept the fact that you're not going to be very rich, but at least you raise your children well. How many people are willing to make that sacrifice?
To be honest with you, Sayyidina, I don't think at the end of the day it is a good enough excuse, because...
No, I agree with that.
It's like saying, you know, it's like saying if somebody has a potential to develop heart disease or diabetes, a doctor says, look, you've got to watch what you're eating and you've got to do exercise. After 10 years, they'll come and say, you know what, it's tough, I had to work, I'm now deep in trouble, I've got a massive list of diseases. Well, at the end of the day, if you can't help yourself, no one's going to help you. So it's about prioritizing and thinking what's really, really important. One of the scholars actually gave me this wonderful example. He said, you know, if you've got a bag and you're carrying something, if you're carrying fruits, then you can just throw the bag and, you know, not as, you don't have to be very careful about what you're carrying, just place it. But if you're carrying, I don't know, explosives or something that could really hurt, you're very, very careful. You're extremely careful how you're carrying it. You make sure that, whatever it is. So with the children, it's a sensitive area. We can't take it lightly. We can't just say, oh, for me, I'm just going to leave it and I'll take them to Saturday school or Sunday school, madrasa. They'll listen to a few lectures here and there and inshallah should be okay. I have to have a plan. Husband and wife both have to come, have a structured plan, and say, you know what, we're going to make sure we do our best. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed, but at least before Allah, they've done something. At the end of the day, they've worked according to a
So this
strategy.
whole situation, you think I or you or anyone who, we can doctor this situation by speaking to the parents and making sure that they're spending more time with their children, they're looking out for their children?
It's,
Do you think this is it?
No. It's partly the issue. So we encourage our parents to have more an active role within the development of their children.
I think this is a good idea, but this is one of those like long-term plans.
Yes.
I mean, I can't speak to a friend of mine who's got a 15-year-old son and tell him to start doing this because it's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
You said it yourself.
Yeah.
I can speak to a friend who's got a 2-year-old and tell them, hey, you need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
now we have this problem today, and you know what people's mindsets are like and the excuses they come up with.
Yeah.
I think we can act as kind of surrogates to these kids who don't have this great relationship with their parents, and try our best. I know we're never going to, but fill a void. So if we can do that, what's the advice we give them?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Or do you
There needs to be,
disagree with that?
I agree with that, but there needs to be an understanding that it is not a quick fix, but we need to work to help each other. So, for example, within the area of self-development,
Yes.
there is this whole discussion about willpower. What is willpower in itself? In Arabic, it's irada. Yes, al-irada. So willpower is needed for a success of a human being. Fact. Everybody should know that the successful sportsmen and women, the successful business people, those successful politicians have all, and everyone else in life who have reached targets must have had determination to do what they ought to do, not what they want to do. Because, sometimes what we want to do is not what we have to do. Yes.
I want to eat 6 donuts.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to get diabetes.
You're going to get all kinds of problems. So,
So
you
we don't
kind
eat
of,
the donuts.
you got to stop, and that you think of the repercussions. So that's a good point. We'll come to how to develop that issue of the will. But there's this professor called, I think, Professor Paul Baumeister. He's written a book called Willpower: Rediscovering the Human's Greatest Strength.
Oh, nice. Do you have that?
I've got it online. I kind of read parts of it, but the summary of it says basically willpower is like a muscle. So, when people go to the gym, they basically stretch their muscles. And that's to make it, something that is more and more utilized. So if we don't walk, if we don't actively get our muscles somehow stretched, it somehow dies or it becomes a problem.
I think that's helped me because you know more than me. Isn't there some sort of a riwayah or hadith that's also along these lines?
Yes.
Something to do with
so
that as
Amir
well?
al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam
Alayhi salam,
says, the beautiful narration says, إِنَّمَا هِيَ نَفْسِي وَرَوِّضُهَا بِالتَّقْوَى. He says, it's my soul, I have to exercise it. Yes. So the same way as we exercise the body, we have to exercise the soul.
Write that down for me later on. I'll send
Inshallah,
it to you.
yes.
Just because, I heard this like 4 or 5 years ago when I was in Najaf, somebody said that. That's why when you were talking about the professor's book, straight away it came back into my mind.
Correct.
Me and you are a bit older, more mature, we can get that. 14-year-old might not get that, you know what I mean?
Sure. So what we have to
Talk to them
encourage
in their
them.
language.
Yes. What we need to do is to understand, all right, why is it that I'm facing this temptation? I want to do something and I quickly do it. I don't have this idea of, it's not going to.
Can I just cut you? We've definitely agreed that, or are we agreeing that it's almost impossible to not, especially with social media and everything that's going on in the world, I can't remove the temptation from in front of them, so it's going to be there.
Yes.
So that's why we have to work on willpower.
Yes, absolutely.
So we can't work on removing the temptations.
First of all, the 14-year-old, the 12-year-old, the 20-year-old, all have to know, and above, all have to know that it is definitely possible and the human strength is greater than the temptations of Satan.
Okay, fair enough.
All right?
Yep.
Quran says that إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. The temptations of shaitan is weak. So, this famous statement says, when there is a will,
There's a way.
well, some people say there is family, but that's something else. But when there is a will, there's a way.
What have you been watching?
So it's just I remember this story that there's a father who was working with his son normally to work in the garden, and every year they would dig up the crops, dig up the garden and everything.
Okay.
So one day his son was arrested, taken to prison because of a crime he did. So that year he was lonely, he couldn't dig up the garden by himself. Yeah. So he sent a letter to his son saying, "Dear son, I missed you this year. There's no one to dig up the garden with me to plant the crops, everything." So his son sent him a letter from the prison saying, "My father, don't dig up the garden this year because I've deliberately hidden a lot of guns there."
Oof.
So the police intercept this letter. They come to the house, they dig up the garden to try and find the
guns,
weapons. They find nothing. So the father sends a letter to the son. "What are you talking about?" The son sends another letter. "You're very welcome."
Allah. Wow.
Yeah. So when there's a will,
there's a
way. He's in the prison, yet he managed to get the
crops done.
Yeah, get the garden digged.
I like that.
Yes. So that self-belief, self-confidence is so important. That this young boy is told.
Where did you read that somewhere, or someone gave you that story?
I read it.
Okay, so it wasn't a film you watched.
No,
it's pretty good though. I do like
it.
Yeah,
but the point is, if that person believes that they can do it, and it goes back to the idea of positivity. So the first part is to depend on Allah and to rely on Him and to ask Him and to say, "Ya Allah, help me." So when we say to that young man or woman or anybody to say, first of all, have self-confidence and belief that yes, you can say no. Now, you might ask me now, okay, that's fair enough, just to tell them have self-belief. But then at the end of the day, it's temptation. They're sitting in front of the screen, they're on their phones, there's no one's watching. What's to stop them going to the sites that they're not supposed to go, for example, or things like that. And the other things that we're told, for example, to think about is why, for example, why do I not drive on the streets in this day and age with my phone held on my hands and talking?
6 points.
Exactly. I know that police everywhere. I'm going to get a £200 fine. I'm going to get 6 points. And then eventually I might get my license taken away from me. Then I can't drive. So I'm constantly thinking of repercussions. I'm constantly thinking of what happens if I get caught. And it's likely that I can get. So what does that mean? That means I'm in the zone of fear of what happens if I do something.
So why don't we show them the repercussions of such acts?
Yes. So they need
of any
to know,
sins.
Hassan, so they need to know that there is accountability, there's hisab and kitab. There is so much description about what the believers will get if they're righteous, and also there's 50-50. People say, "Oh, don't talk about hell and what it goes on." The Quran goes in depth about the food of the people of hell. So for example, إِنَّ شَجَرَةَ الزَّقُومِ طَعَامُ الْأَثِيمِ. There's a tree called شَجَرَةُ الزَّقُوم in Jahannam. The Quran describes it in detail. Says its thorns are like the heads of Satans, and when people consume it, their bellies explode with fire. And the Quran tells us that people of Jahannam, may Allah protect us all, they actually get hungry and they have no food to eat other than the pus coming out from their own hands, and they eat it. That's in the Quran.
I don't want to eat my fruit anymore.
But can you see, when you have these images in your mind, they start to play and think, "I don't want to do that." I remember a young boy once came to me.
Yeah, let me remove these images from your mind. What are you drinking? I've got lemon juice, apple juice, and orange juice.
I'll have lemon, please.
Lemon, yeah, that's a good shout. I think it has the least sugar as well. Sorry, I cut you off. Tell me about this boy.
That's okay. So this boy came to me once after a majlis and said, at school, it was in America, at school there's a girl who is a non-Muslim, and she has this liking of me. Thank you, Hassan Sayyidina. And she sometimes when I'm coming in the school, or when I see her, she comes and hugs me, she wants to hold my hands. I can't say no to her.
He can't say no?
No, because it's a temptation, there's there. So he says, "Can you teach me something?" He's 18. He said, how can I be strong myself? I said, this might sound drastic to some people, but it is just a way to wake us up, because sometimes we're in this deep slumber, heedlessness, known as ghafla. We're drowning in our own kind of difficulties and temptations that we can't step back. So I said to him, "Go to a cemetery." Okay, and then what? I said to him, if it's possible, Muslim cemetery, and find a grave that's dug already.
And sleep in it.
Yeah. sit. He's like, I can't. I was like, sit there and just look at it. What are you going to do if God decides tomorrow your life ends and you're hugging that person and holding your hands unrightfully? He's like, I don't know what to say. He's like, what are you going to say to the angels? How are you going to face God? And you're there. And what's going to help you? Just put yourself in the zone. Put yourself in that mindset. And it's well and good enough just to sit here and think, yeah, this, I'll be okay. Go there and think. Because that's where we are told, Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam encourage us to take part in funerals.
Yeah.
Encourage us, if possible, to help out in the washing of the body, the taghsil of somebody who's passed away.
Have you ever seen a dead body?
Yes, I take part regularly on alhamdulillah, I try whatever I can, and it helps me to think about that. So when we go and see somebody,
once.
Yeah,
just one time I was in Cardiff many years ago. It was a very, very, very bizarre experience for me. It stays with me till this day.
How
That
did you feel?
body, when I saw it, you know, when the sheikh kind of hits the shoulder thing and shakes it and says,
does the talqeen.
The talqeen,
Yeah. That is very important to be seen. And likewise when the body is being washed. Because the body is helpless now. It's in the mercy of Allah. And these people are just turning it, pouring the water, cleaning every part of it. And it shakes you and think, it will definitely be me one day. It's not, it could be me. It will be me. It will be me one day. And only Allah knows when. Why does a young man or woman or anybody have, I believe, the audacity, we all sometimes sadly have that, to sin against God? Because they feel my death is
far away.
I'm not in that, for me personally, a tragedy hit me a few years ago. I was getting ready to go for a Muharram Majalis, and I heard the news that my cousin, direct cousin in Iraq, he's only 18 years of age. And he was in his house. He wasn't out. He was in Kadhmiya.
Bomb? Was it a bomb?
No, it wasn't a bomb. He wasn't abducted. He went to the bathroom, to the toilet, and he was using the water basin. Apparently the boiler was there and it had somehow was faulty. So there were electric current running through somehow the supply. And when he touched because it was wet, he got electrocuted. He fell and there was no one in the house.
He died?
And he passed away. 18 years of age, no marriage, no university, totally healthy. He was my direct cousin. I'd seen him only a few months before, so he's my auntie's khala's son. So Ibn Khalti, as they say. So, Allah yahfadhak, سيدنا ويحفظ عائلتكم and all your family. Now, the point is, for me, it was, and for many people, okay, a young 18-year-old, Allah doesn't ask us when somebody's life is about to end. So when we tell that story to a young boy, it's like, my friend, it could really be you or me tomorrow. We don't know. I can't even say tomorrow. It could be in the next 10 minutes. Anybody could leave. So that realization helps with the willpower. I'm not going to give in to this because I don't want to be facing Allah with that possibility that I'm actually, the soul is taken away from my body and I'm in the state of sinning.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Leaving this world, for example, in a state of janaba or something like that, you know what I mean? Like when you're not pure and that's it, it's over. Sure. That's scary. For me, that's a scary thought. Portraying that to the youth, I don't know, sometimes I think we should do like short YouTube videos or something like that. It's become very difficult. I mean, I'm not even that old and I'm finding it difficult to talk to people a few years younger than me about these issues. I can't deny everything you said makes perfect sense. It's all about building willpower. But like you talking to me, that it's building muscles. When I come to someone and tell them you need to build your muscles, I explain to them, you need to do, for example, 15 press-ups, work the chest, do your push-ups, abdominal crunch, da-da-da-da. So break that down for me, the actual exercises.
Yeah. One of the things to do is, we are told, this is all from riwayat of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam, is to think about time management. and look at how we're spending our time. So the first criteria is boredom. You see what boredom does? It opens up the floodgates for shaitanic thoughts and temptations.
Time to be bored though in this day and age.
There's so many of our youth that are twiddling their thumbs, and when you're doing that and you don't know what to do with yourself, thoughts come to your mind.
By the way, you said that in the wrong moment because I was just literally twiddling my thumbs.
But we're having a good conversation here.
That's true. That's
but
true.
Twiddling our thumbs in the sense
No, I
of
know what you mean.
I'm bored. I don't know what to do. I don't know. And then you know what? The term that I somehow dislike using,
Which one?
kill time. See, people say, I want to kill time. But the thing is, time is a precious commodity given to us by Allah. We should not
The
kill
most
it.
valuable
Yeah,
commodity.
we should not kill it. So people say, you know, I went to the airport for my flight 2 hours early and I just sat there and I had to kill time. Well, you've been there 2 hours early, no problem. But don't kill the time. Use it effectively. Use it for your own benefit. Okay? So that's an important thing. Time management, to read about it, to be structured in our lives. We are told in the Ahl Bayt's teaching, alayhi salam, that if we look at our akhlaq, morality and conduct, so it reflects on our willpower. So if I'm good with people, if my mannerism is good, if my ethics is good, I control my anger, I am pleasant, I'm helping others, it directly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us with our willpower too. In other words, I can say no to my desires a bit better. Thirdly, very importantly, and that is to associate myself with people who remind me about God, who are righteous, who are individuals who don't drive me towards Satan, you know. So I'm not in the car and then somebody's puts on loud music with the friends, you know. I'm already in that negative, so to speak, area of sinning, and shaitan is very overwhelming and quite controlling, so to speak.
Why do you think I hang out with you?
Alhamdulillah.
See?
That's a blessing.
I've got it in my mind already, all these things.
Well, you know
it's
what?
about how to take it
Exactly.
to you.
I think, you know, we should encourage our youngsters to think about, you know, their environment that they spend their time with as well, all right? And the fourth thing is very important, is to start to have knowledge and association with what the faith has taught us to do, and to understand the repercussions. So that's very, very important. So the more I read about Alam al-Barzakh, the more I read about death, the more I read about al-Akhirah, the more that I can be inspired to resist temptations. The more I read about the glorious individuals, the role models, the prophets and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the more I can be in that particular mentality to...
I'll tell you something that popped into my mind. This was told to me by my friend before I got married as an advice, which we did do. He told me what I do with my wife is we read the book of the Noble Kabira of Dostoevsky.
The greatest sins, yeah.
Which is translated in English, by the way.
Yes.
And that really helps, by the way. We used to read that in the early days of our marriage together at night, me and my wife. Because you know the way it breaks it down, what the sin is, what it does to your soul, and what will happen to you if you do such a sin, kind of thing.
And do you know what that does? It's a very good point, because when you discuss it with someone, it starts to consolidate, it starts to really become part of your faith. And then what you do as well is that you keep monitoring your actions. So every day, every few days, you ask yourself, what did I do right? Did I say that?
Sadiq says, always
hold yourself accountable.
Yes.
Before you're held accountable. لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يُحَاسِبْ نَفْسَهُ. Whomsoever does not hold themselves accountable. So ask someone, when is the last time we spoke to our friend and said, by the way, can you tell me, have I done something, you know, not really good? Tell me, and I'll be grateful. It's the greatest gift that you can give me, so that I can work on it. And to be checking ourselves is very good.
So would you accept it if I gave you some constructive
It would be the best present and gift that you can give me.
Okay, you haven't eaten enough strawberries. But
Inshallah.
Shaykhna, honestly, thank you. Like, see, this is why it's good to, as you said, have positive, like-minded people around. And
but if you see that brother, tell him don't give up, or anybody, don't give up. The path is long.
The next step now is, inshallah, the ideas that I've got from this is, I mean, you have to be involved in this, inshallah. We're going to make discussion circles, and we're going to break it down like the way we have. I'm going to write a few things up as well, we'll email each other, inshallah, and by the end of the week, let's try to sort something out. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Inshallah, as believers, we stand together, help each other, and get to Jannah together, inshallah.
Inshallah. Just one thing. You know when you were saying the story about the gentleman in America, where you were giving him the advice, and you told him, I'll give you one thing to do, so you don't do that. You know, I don't know why, the first thing that came into my mind was I thought you were going to tell him, because you were like, it's very drastic. I was like, oh, what did Sheikh say to him? I thought that you'd said to him, just don't wash for a week. Every time she comes to smell you, she'll run away.
Well, I mean, sometimes drastic can be different.
Yeah. Please, let's have some more.
Thank
fruits.
you,
This
inshallah.
is really tasty.
Well, I'll have the strawberry, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So you accepted the criticism.